I don't have to convince FSU fans that Mike Norvell is a good coach or a great coach or one of the best coaches in the country. However, it is still really, really refreshing when national analysts, when people who get paid a lot of money to talk about college football kind of reinforce those ideas. We don't have to go through the whole Bama saga or what he's done the last 2 years or the turnaround at Florida State or his time at Memphis, which was really, really successful. We don't necessarily have to go through all of that, even though we believe it. It's good when people get on and talk about it. You heard from Josh Pate this week. I know a lot of you don't like him, but you heard from Josh Pate this week, and he literally said, anyone that has a brain doesn't doubt Mike Norvell now. And he said there are some people who are going to say, you got to win a national title to be considered elite. And he said, well, that stuff's coming for Mike Norvell. Playoff wins and titles and stuff, that's coming. But nobody with a brain doubts Mike Norvell. Pate wasn't the only one with heavy praise and high praise here in July for Coach Norvell. In fact, this other person that I'm going to talk about probably laid it on even thicker. So Andy Staples went on a show this week and was asked about Mike Norvell, and we're going to play a few clips from that and then talk about it. Here's that first one.
I actually love what Mike Norvell's done there because I remember what it was like when Willie Taggart got fired. I remember the hole that he had to get them out of.
Yeah.
The job he's done there has been amazing. Mm-hmm. And this is going to look very different, but I feel like Mike Norvell has earned the benefit of the doubt from us in terms of selecting people out of the transfer portal.
So he talked about how I cut some of it out, but he went on to talk about, Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman being gone and Jared Verse and Jordan Travis. And he talked about how, it is going to look different at Florida State. And I think the one thing that I think about with this season is if Florida State comes out and starts the year like we think they will, a win against Georgia Tech when it's the only game that's happening. The very next week they play, and they're the only game happening then too. So twice on a national stage with the entire country watching. The game against Georgia Tech in Dublin is going to have amazing ratings because it's the first game back. The game against Boston College on Labor Day, at least to start the game, that could turn into a blowout. At least to start the game should have really good ratings because, again, it's the only game on. And if they take care of business in those two, and then they beat a Memphis team that they're much better than, and then they beat a Cal team that is one of the worst in the ACC and should have never been added to the ACC, but that's a topic for a different day. And then they go on the road and beat an SMU team, which they should win. I know that is looked at as a trap game, but if they start out 5-0, like we all think that they probably will, Mike Norvell, after replacing all of the talent that he did, because I think there is still a small subset, a small group of people that say, well, you did it with a bunch of older guys. You did it with a bunch of guys that, you got everybody back. You made this magical run, and we're just not convinced yet. But if he does it with another group, a brand new group of people, I think that kind of silences all of that little small subset of doubters, that little small subset of people who say, we're not quite convinced. And Andy and the people there on the panel are telling you right now, no, he deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's done it year after year after year after year. He's built rosters. He's built this program. And as somebody who he mentions in a moment has been around the program, I think he understands how good it's going to end up being. All right. Then they got into DJ Uiagalelei, and he was asked about him. But before we give his answer, I want you to hear what was said and the way that it was phrased when he was asked about DJ specifically.
Talk to me a little bit about DJU and what you think with that and fit or whatever, because kind of what you said there, benefit of the doubt. When it first happened, man, I was like, I don't like this. He's not Jordan Travis. But then I have to remind myself, it's Mike Norvell. Like, that dude is an offensive genius. He's not going to ask DJ to do Jordan Travis things. He's going to ask him to do DJ things and try to make it better. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you like it? Do you not like it? Whatever.
All right, so Andy answers in a minute, and I'll show you what he said. But just the fact that he said and called Mike Norvell an offensive genius. You've got other coaches in this state. We don't necessarily have to name names, but other coaches in this state that can't figure out when to take a knee with a lead and the other team having no timeouts. We've got coaches in this state that continue to run quarterbacks out injured and play them hurt. And we've seen that in South Florida now back-to-back years. We've got coaches that can't figure out when to call timeouts at the end of games, and it costs their teams field goals. Or we've got coaches that have taken penalties at the end of games, and it has cost their team points, and then they end up going to overtime and losing to Arkansas. We've got coaches that on a 4th and 17 can't figure out how to get their guys in position to win a game. We've got coaches that at this current time cannot figure out how to get 11 guys on the field on special teams. And while all that's happening, they're calling Mike Norvell an offensive genius. And that is impressive to me. The fact that that's his reputation, that's the way that he's known, that's the way that people look at Mike Norvell is as an offensive genius. And you've got 2 other coaches in this state that do some things well. South Florida, they recruit really, really well. I think the recruiting in Florida has been pretty good. But can't coach their way out of a wet paper bag. And so, yeah, when you just look at the coaches, I love the way that Eric put that, an offensive genius. All right, so now listen to Andy's answer. All right, just before I show you Andy's answer, I do want to give some love to our friends over at gotspears.com. My guy John has the best spears in the game. Got mine right here up in the office studio here. You can get a great deal on a 6-foot spear right now for $100. If you want the one with the torch, which is what I have, it's $165. But if you're just going to mount this in your house, you're not lighting it on fire like we do out of the tailgates, you can see the picture there. You can just spend $100 and get this thing. You can always arrange for in-person pickup to save yourself on shipping, also save yourself on time. They certainly get a lot of these spears requests, and they are delayed somewhat. Or if you're going to a game this season, you can pick up in person. Just give them about a 2-week heads up as to which game you're coming to, and you can pick it up in person. Again, won't have to pay shipping, won't have to wait for it. You have it there, ready to go home with you. Make sure that you're shopping at gotspears.com for any of your gifts, any mementos. You just got a bonus, whatever it is, go to gotspears.com and show some support to my guy John over there.
It was the same as you. Because remember they were going to have Cam Ward and DJ come on the same weekend.
Right.
And DJ went there without an offer, which in this era of the transfer portal is virtually
Crazy.
unheard of.
Yeah.
But I think they were kind of testing one another. DJ was testing them, and they were testing DJ.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, I went up to Tallahassee a couple months ago and talked to DJ and talked to some of the other players. He seems to fit so well there. Like
Right.
it is, I know he's a guy that people like. And I knew that from Clemson and from Oregon State. But he really seems to click very well with this particular group. Norvell seems to click well with him. And here's the thing I will say about Norvell. And there's a few coaches that I think this particular year it's going to be a little bit different with them because of one rule change. The rule change that allows the coach to talk to the quarterback in the helmet.
Dude.
If you are Mike Norvell, if you are Lane Kiffin, if you are Hugh Freeze, that makes your offense better instantly.
Yes.
If you are one of those play calling guys, and it doesn't have to be the head coach because it's going to be whoever the play caller is going to be in the guy's ear. But if you are a play caller who can see the matrix from the sideline, which these guys are, it will change everything for your offense.
So I think this is massive, and it's something that nobody has really talked about yet. It's something that isn't, honestly, until Andy went on this podcast and said it, it's something that I hadn't even thought about. I think we all think that Norvell is going to be the best coach that DJ's had, right? And you can take your Dabo arguments of the best play caller, QB coach, the best support as far as growing DJ's game, right? You can have your 2 championship arguments with Dabo, and that's not necessarily what I'm referring to. But I think we all agree that Norvell, if anybody could get the most out of him, it's going to be Mike Norvell, right? And that's not even really a shot at the Clemson staff or a shot at the Oregon State staff. I just think that you probably have a little more confidence in Norvell to get it done. Again, it's been agreed upon that Norvell is an offensive genius here, and if you are looking at it from that perspective, then you obviously have more confidence in DJ. The expectations for what Uyunglele should do or can do this year are not necessarily for him to go out and throw for 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns like Jameis did. That's not what I think that Norvell's going to ask him to do. Now, I do think there are some parts of his game that are super underrated, and after having some conversations even this week with folks in Tallahassee, I think that what you're going to be able to do with DJ is going to be drastically different than what you did with Jordan Travis. I think that the type of quarterback play that you're going to get from DJ is just going to give you a little higher ceiling, and that's no shot at Jordan. I mean, Jordan's, to me, a top 4 quarterback at FSU ever, and the other 3 have Heisman. So, yeah, I mean, that's not a shot at Jordan. I just think that what you're going to be able to do in-game, taking shots down the field, extending the deep shots that you're able to take, I just think that gives you a little bit different aspect that Jordan couldn't necessarily do. Now, DJ certainly got things that he will need to improve on at some points, but I do think that you're in a really, really good position with Mike Norvell being the one that chooses what DJ does. I don't think DJ has to play hero ball. I don't think DJ has to be the answer. He doesn't have to be that true freshman coming in like he was at Clemson that has to be the reason that they win games. Trevor Lawrence was the reason they won games, and they're talented around him, but Deshaun Watson was the reason that put them over the top to let them win games. And I think they expected that to just continue with DJ, and I just don't think he was ready for that yet, right? I think too much was put on him, and he wasn't necessarily ready. But that inner communication, because they talk all the time about the mistakes that DJ might make, or, oh, well, he makes this kind of play, or he makes that kind of play. And the highs are really high, but the lows are really low. And I just think having Norvell or Atkins or whoever it ends up being in his ear, right? Because I know Atkins calls some plays at times. I think having that voice in his ear and reminding him of, hey, this is what we're looking to do. This is what we're trying to accomplish on this play or that play. I think that is what is going to give him a chance to have more success than you could ever imagine. Somebody like Chris Winkie, and I know he's a million years old, right? No offense. He's probably my favorite quarterback, besides Jameis. I think somebody like Chris Winkie wouldn't have needed that. Like, wouldn't have helped him that much. He knew what was going on. He could diagnose things. Somebody like Jameis, I don't think that helps Jameis that much. He knew, he was so there, like you didn't need to do it. Like he saw things that were 2 and 3 reads ahead of time. And I think DJ, will absolutely benefit from this in a year one of an offense, in an offense that is complicated enough, right? Like Norvell runs a complicated enough offense. I don't think it's the most complicated in college football or anything like that. But I think that just that reminder of like, hey, here's what we're trying to get here. Here's what the expectation is for this play. Here's what we're trying to focus on. And simplifying that and making that more of a constant communication is something that Norvell is going to excel at, and it's going to make DJ that much better too. I think DJ's highs have come at really big moments. And you think about how he's thrown for the most yards that any opponent has ever thrown for at Notre Dame. I'd love for him to break his own record this year. You think about how he had 4 touchdowns against Florida State the last time he played in Doak Campbell. I do think he rises to the moment. And I think that if you get his best against those big games, and then you get kind of the okay play, the mediocre play, you made some mistakes there. If you can kind of get those against the teams that you're a lot better than, right? Like, if you get that against BC or against Cal or against Duke, then you're probably in pretty good shape. I think that that's kind of your best case scenario. That's kind of what you're hoping for. And he does seem to be a kid that when the lights come on the brightest, he plays better. He did that at Clemson. He did that at Oregon State. And he had some really nice performances in big-time games, big-time matchups. And if that's kind of continued on, if you kind of continue to get that, I think that's really impressive. Another thing that Andy said is just the way that he clicks, just the way that he's comfortable around that. I think when he talked about the official visit, and you know that Cam and DJ were there around the same time. I think they passed each other. One was going in as one was coming out. It was businesslike for DJ. And I think it was very businesslike for Cam too. And I think he's going to have a good year. I think he's probably the best quarterback that Florida State sees this year. But I like the approach. I like the business-like approach. I think he's there for a very specific reason. I think he trusts Mike Norvell, and that's where he wanted to be. I think that, Cam had different options. Cam had Miami. Cam had the NFL. Cam had Florida State, and ended up doing what he thought was best for him. I know that NIL was involved there. I don't necessarily think that NIL was involved to the same level that DJ was. There's nothing wrong with NIL being involved. But I do think that DJ came for a very specific purpose and has that more laser focus of, okay, I'm going out to do X, Y, Z, improve my game, win at the highest level, take Florida State to the playoff, win an ACC, whatever it ends up being. Obviously, the motivation will be there when they play Clemson, but I found this interview pretty interesting. I found the way that they broke down Mike Norvell. They broke down what they expect out of DJU Youngale. Was really interesting, and we'll see, right? Time will tell. We'll be in Dublin in a little over a month, and we'll find out what's going to happen there, right? I think that the way this season starts, we mentioned those games, those first 5 games, Florida State, even with just okay performances from DJU Youngale, should win all of those games. If they were going to get bad performances in some of them, that certainly wouldn't be ideal. But even if he was just okay, right? You give us 2 touchdowns and a pick, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. You're probably, with the running game, with the defense, you're probably still winning. Obviously there's the weird scenarios of, both touchdowns go back for, whatever. But I think that you're probably in a pretty good space. And it gives him time to get comfortable, adjusted. It's not preseason games by any means. It's not a spring game. It's not a scrimmage. Those are real games and real bullets flying at you. But I think with Georgia Tech's defense, the idea of playing Boston College, who is not very good, you should start 2-0. It should be Memphis just because you're that much better. And then it kind of gets rolling from there. You're more comfortable. You're seeing those reads. You're understanding what you needed to do. And it all kind of culminates with a game against Clemson, his former team, probably with both teams having a combined 1 loss. So, all right, I'm excited to see DJ this year. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Again, really insightful podcast from Andy Staples and them. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will talk to you soon. Go Noles.